Hey everyone, ET8313 here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys what I have in my commander deck for Medomai the Ageless. So for those of you who are not familiar with this card, he has flying, and whenever he deals combat damage directly to a player, I get to take an extra turn. Although Medomai can't attack during his extra turn, because then someone would possibly be able to have an infinite amount of turns, which would just be ridiculous. So he is, 6 to cast, and he's a 4/4. And my main theme for this deck is mostly, I guess, in a sense, creature control, like tapping other people's stuff, essentially just so I can get through to deal that damage and get my extra turn. So I focus a lot on tapping stuff for this deck. So, I have 33 basic lands, two of my shinies, and I have about 4 non-basic lands, but I have Terramorphic Expanse just for that extra ramp in finding something. I've got Moorland Haunt, where I get to add just one colorless to my mana pool, and then pay a blue and white, tap, exile a creature card from my graveyard, and put a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And then a typical Azorius Guildgate, and an Evolving Wilds just for that extra ramp for when you need it. Alright, so going into the, I guess, creature portion of my deck. We'll grab them up here. So, I didn't know how a person would classify a Planeswalker. I put it in as a creature, even though technically it's not a creature. But I have Tamiyo the Moonsage in this deck, and for her ability it's +1, tap target permanent, doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, -2, draw a card for each tapped creature target player controls, -8, I get her emblem, and I have no maximum hand size, and whenever a card of mine is put into my graveyard from anywhere, I may return it to my hand. This can be good to have no maximum hand size, but also bad, especially if someone plays a card like Price of Knowledge, and then, you're dealt damage equal to your hand size at the beginning of your upkeep, and so on and so forth. And then I have a Wall of Denial. It's just a defender with Shroud. It's a 0/8, so it's got a big butt. It's good for blocking, of course. And then I have a Battlefield Thaumaturge. So my instant and sorceries cost 1 less to cast for each creature it targets, and then it has the heroic ability. And I have Audric, Master Tactician. First strike, and whenever him and at least 3 creatures attack, I get to choose which creatures block and how those creatures block. So most of the time it's, okay, this stuff is smaller than this stuff, I'm going to make you attack here and kill it, or I'll just say the damage goes right through and nobody blocks. Then I have an Archomancer, and when it enters the battlefield, return an instant or sorcery from my graveyard. I have the new Magic 2015 Avacyn. Mainly I just use it to make a couple things indestructible, mostly my commander, if I can. And then I have a Hussar Patrol, Flash, and Vigilance. New Prov Guildmage, so something gains flying, and I get to detain a target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Then I have a Quicksilver Gargantuan, and when he enters the battlefield, I can have him as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's still a 7/7, which is pretty good if, a tiny creature has an awesome ability, but it's little. Then I have Gold Knight Redeemer. When she enters the battlefield, gain 2 life for each other creature I control. Then I have Master of Diversion. When he attacks, tap target creature. Elgod Shieldmate. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's got Soulbound, and when it's paired with something, both creatures have hexproof, which I like to use especially for my commander. And have an Azorius Guildmage. I get to tap target creature and counter target activated ability if I pay to cost. And then I have a foil Sphinx of the Chimes. Pretty much this card is useless in commander, but I mainly just have it for a big creature. But discard 2 non-land cards with the same name, draw 4 cards. But as any good person knows, for Commander, you will not have more than 1 card with the same name, essentially. And then we have Wing Crafter, another soulbound card, and its ability is when it's paired, both creatures have flying. I have quite a few creatures in here with flying already, but always that extra flying, it doesn't hurt. And then Chancellor of the Spires, whenever this card is in my opening hand, I get to reveal it, and at the beginning of the first upkeep, each opponent puts the top 7 cards, his or her library, into his or her graveyard. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, I may cast a target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. It's a pretty funky card. It's got a weird picture, but I like it. And we have Daxos of Miletus. So he can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So that's pretty good. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library, and I gain life equal to the card's converted mana cost. Until end of turn, I may cast that card, and I may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast. So this card's pretty good. A lot of people use him as a commander, but I don't know. I prefer to have him in this deck as a commander. And then this card, a lot of people get really mad when I play this card, but Archetype of Imagination, creatures I control have flying, and creatures my opponents control lose flying and can't have or gain it. This card can be really terrible because you can just keep getting through with damage over and over and over again, because no one's stuff has flying anymore. But yours does. And then I have Archon of the I can't pronounce this card. Triumvirate. Okay, yeah, that's probably not how it's said. But anyways, when it attacks, I get to detain up to 2 target non-land permanents my opponents control, which is pretty good, because, once again, creature control. Then I have a Frost Titan, and whenever he becomes the target of a spell or ability, an opponent controls counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 2. And whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, tap target permanent and doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Once again, the tapping theme. And this I love to make indestructible when I need blockers. Guardian of the Gateless. It can block any number of creatures, and for each creature it blocks, she gets +1/+1 until end of turn, which is really awesome, especially if you make this card indestructible with my Avacyn card. So basically it's a free blocker and you only need the 1 card to block, which is amazing. I'm surprised it's only an uncommon, but I suppose it would be easy to get rid of with removal, but it's still an awesome card. And then I have the Djinn of 3 Wishes. When he enters the battlefield, put 3 wish counters on him, pay 4, remove a wish counter from him, and reveal the top card of my library, and I may play that card without paying its mana cost. If I don't, I have to exile it. So it can be either really good or really awesome, especially if, well, I guess if you get a land card, it's kind of silly, because then you essentially just paid for mana to cast a land card, which is, obviously free. And then I have Jelen Sphinx, and it's got flying, vigilance, and when it attacks, other attacking creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's almost like Exalted, but not quite, because it gives stuff that's attacking as opposed to just the one thing. And then I have Banisher Priest. Enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Banisher Priest leaves, which is good, especially to play on something that's really scary. And then I have a Imposing Sovereign. Creatures your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped, which is definitely good, especially if you want to attack people. Then they can't use them as blockers. And Lavinia of the 10th, protection for red, and when she enters the battlefield, detain each non-land permanent my opponent's control with converted mana cost 4 or less. So this card is really awesome. I really do need to get some cards that have like a flicker effect. That way I can keep, bringing her back up to my hand and then putting her back out so I can keep using this over and over. So I'm still thinking about what card to use for that, but, you know, so far she works pretty good even without the flicker. This card, people really don't like it when I, you know, pay its ability. The Jace's Archivist. Pay 1, tap. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. This really sucks, especially if someone had an awesome hand, so then they get really mad. So you better just hope that they have graveyard love, or else they'll be very angry with you. This card, oh my gosh, I love playing this card. Guafa Hazid Profiteer. You pay 2, tap, put a bribery counter on target creature I don't control. Its controller draws a card, but creatures with bribery counters on them can't attack or block. And I have found out there is no way to get rid of bribery counters unless something dies and then you bring it back to the battlefield. Or, you know, you do a flicker thing where you return it to your hand and then play it again. But essentially there is no way to get rid of these counters on there. Unless you have a card that's, you know, tap, remove a counter from this sort of thing, because technically it is a counter, so you can remove it that way. But most of the time when I've played this card, people have an extremely difficult time trying to get rid of those bribery counters. So I've had such good luck playing this card before. It's pretty awesome. And then I have Wind Reader Sphinx. Whenever a creature with flying attacks, I may draw a card. This card people also really don't like, especially if you use it on someone's commander. But Meddling Mage, when it comes into play, name a non-land card, and that card can't be played. And it's only a 2 cast, which is incredible. So it's a really good card to play in commander if someone has like a very, you know, intense, overpowered commander. And then I have Phantom Warrior. He just can't be blocked, so not too special, but at the same time good. Master of Predicaments. So, when he deals combat damage to a player, I get to choose a card in my hand. That player guesses whether the card's converted mana cost is greater than 4. If the player guessed wrong, you may cast the card without paying its mana cost. Now, this doesn't have, I don't know. It's a pretty good card, but I was always wondering, and I've never clarified this with an actual official judge, but say if I had a land card and, I can only play one a turn, or I haven't played one, I don't know. If they guess the converted mana cost is more than 4, technically a land card has a converted mana cost of 0. So would that count towards that? If they guess that wrong, would I get to play that? I don't know. This card confuses me in a sense, but I don't know. It's pretty interesting. And then I will go into my spells and artifacts and all that fun stuff. If I can pick it up. This card I just put in there the other day. But it is an artifact, Glaring Spotlight. Creatures my opponents control with hexproof can be the targets of spells and abilities I control as if they didn't have hexproof. And then I get to pay 3, sacrifice it. Creatures I control gain hexproof until end of turn and are unblockable this turn. Most of the time I'll probably just use it for its regular ability, not the one that you have to pay for, because then you have to sacrifice it. This card, I've won on this card a couple times before, but you pay 6, tap it, 2 target players exchange life totals, and that's Soul Conduit. Yeah, it can be pretty mean. It's funny though when you play it amongst other people, especially when you're trying to kill someone who's a threat. You change life totals with someone who has a low life, and then you uninvite them to the game. And then just a Darksteel Ingot, indestructible, 1 mana of any to your pool. Then a Quarter Shield, just equip it to a creature and it gets +3 and +3 defense and then vigilance. Nothing too special. And then a Traveler's Amulet, just for that extra ramp. And then I have Sudden Storm, tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't tap during their controller's next untap step. Scry 1. Then Safe Passage, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control this turn. And then I have Aether Spouts. For each attacking creature, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of his or her library. And then we have Lost in the Mist, counter target spell, return target. Oh no, my thing is getting low on battery. Counter target spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Reprisal, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, it can't be regenerated. Either size, return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Silence, your opponents can't cast spells this turn. Destroy target enchantment, you gain 3 life. Ghost form, up to 2 target creatures are unblockable. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, gain 4 life. May tap or untap target permanent, and then untap another one. Cipher, target creature opponent controls, you tap it, doesn't tap, cipher. Launch the Fleet, Strive, cost 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first. Until end of turn, any number of target creatures gain whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 soldier token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Target creature is unblockable this turn. Talrand's Invocation, put 2/2 Drake tokens. Circle of Solace, choose a creature type. Pay 2 the next time a creature of the chosen type would deal damage. Prevent it. Numbing Dose, enchanted artifact or creature doesn't untap during its untap step. Blah, blah, blur, blah, blur. Psychic Surgery, whenever an opponent shuffles his or her library, you may look at the top 2 cards of that library. You may exile one of those cards, then put the rest on top of the library in any order. Then we have Thassa's Ire. Pay 4, you tap or untap target creature. Illusionary Armor, enchanted creature gets +4/+4, and when it becomes the target of spell or ability, you just sacrifice the armor. Spectral Prison, enchant creature, it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, and when it becomes target of a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice the Spectral Prison. Dismiss into Dream, each creature your opponent controls is an illusion to its other creature types, and when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Curse of Exhaustion, enchanted player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Paralyzing Grasp, enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. And lastly, Personal Sanctuary. During your turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you, which is pretty good. So, sorry I had to speed through the last cards there, but my thing is like, oh no, you're gonna die. The battery is low. So that is my commander deck for Medomai the Ageless. Let me know what you think, and tell me more about what you have in your commander deck for Medomai the Ageless if you have one too. Anyways, that is my video. ET8313 out.